All right. I want to apologize to you guys. So we recorded earlier, and it looks like there was a wrong setting on the audio. So I'll let you guys get touched back in. Go ahead, friends, text me, make sure the audio is working. We're going to do this one over. I recorded everything, but we're going to do it over. That's okay because that's what a pro does. So first up, go to theselfevidenttruth.com, get yourself some merch, check out the blog. Massey and Carrie, they are out and they're in South Carolina. And I'm here having to do a podcast over again. But that's okay. There we go. Just got confirmed. So what we're going to talk about today, TikTok. Now, I know this is something that there's a lot of opinions, and I thought it was really important. We've got to talk about the constitutional side of it. And I rushed into this thing. The title is probably not even right. Mass, if you got a chance to go into Restream, go ahead and fix the title for me if you can. Otherwise, I'll clean it up in post. But I wanted to get this out there. I think it's so important that we actually look at the constitutional side of TikTok and what's going on with it. It's vital because there are a lot of arguments being made on emotional side of things, and there's some things that people aren't remembering. And there's one specific instance of something that people are not thinking about in this whole thing. I'm not even sure I've decided fully on where we're at on this. I'm still trying to figure it out. But I feel a little more clear on it, and I want to discuss that. So first up, what is this bill? What's going on with the TikTok bill? It is not banning TikTok. It's not banning TikTok. What it's doing is saying a foreign adversary cannot hold ownership in a very specific type of business. And let me read through basically the criteria that this bill is looking to do. It must be an app or website that has more than 1 million users and offers those users ability to do their own independent content creation on the platform. The app or website must also be controlled or owned by a foreign adversary as defined by U.S. legal code. The president must determine it a national security threat. I get it. We all sigh on that one. The entity is not forced to dissolve. The foreign entity must divest their stake in the company. In other words, a foreign adversary cannot have control over the company that fulfills the previous requirements. Now, if this foreign adversary does not divest, aka sell up their ownership, then the company is banned outright. But what is the ban? The ban is on the app or website being offered or hosted on U.S. platforms. It's not a dissolution of the company. It's banning the company off the platform. And you could still jailbreak your iPhone. You could still go outside the U.S. to go get it, but U.S. platforms cannot carry it. The option on this is judicial review. Now, the judicial review sticks to Washington, and we can all have our issues on that. And I'm with you I don't trust Nancy Pelosi. And if she's coming out for it, there's a part of me that goes, uh-oh, what's going on here? So I'm not putting you away on that. I agree with you. There's always gets sketched out when Nancy Pelosi is for something. Why? When Biden has said, I'll vote for it. Why? Now, most people see it as a Trojan horse. If you look at the language of the bill, they try very hard to not sweep up citizens or domestic business. Foreign adversaries is a very large token of this whole thing. There are basically 4 nations that are foreign adversaries: China, Iran, North Korea, and Russia. Now, there's a couple of individuals, Castro's out of Cuba and Maduro out of Venezuela. Here's where the issue is, though. People are saying, well, Congress decides who the foreign adversaries are. Not really, because just like Congress, they gave up their duty and handed it to somebody else. Who decides that? The Secretary of Commerce. Now, it doesn't matter who the Secretary of Commerce is. In case you're wondering, it's Gina Raimundo. However, This is what federal regulation states. The Secretary's determination of foreign adversaries is solely for the purposes of the executive order. This rule and any subsequent rule promulgated pursuant to the executive order. Now, you might make the argument that what that means is just for a specific executive order, therefore, it would go back to Congress. I think that would be a legal argument to be made. Pursuant to the Secretary's discretion, the list of foreign adversaries will be revised as determined to be necessary. Such revisions will be effective immediately upon publication in the Federal Register without prior notice or opportunity for public comment. Can change it on a whim. I get itchy about that, and I'm with you. And that, I think that's one of the big sticking points for me on this whole thing is, who's making the decision of who a foreign adversary is, and then move from there. Now, the question for this is, what would the constitutional founders' take be on this? And I understand you see it as a Patriot Act 2.0. The Patriot Act went against citizens. It created new three-letter agencies. It was a broad sweep, thousands of pages bill to basically control the American society. This bill is completely focused outwards in terms of foreign ownership over companies. There's a big difference. Now, I get you, and I'm with you of, yeah, but they always tend to find a back door. The Second Amendment or the First Amendment are argued about constantly. So no matter how specific you get your language, there will always be an argument, well, does it mean this or does it not mean that? Or what about this? So you're going to have the arguments either way. Now, what about the founders? I don't actually want to start with them. I want to start with the philosophers who inspired them. Let's start with Locke. Locke talked about natural law, right? Locke talked about liberty and personal rights. Locke talked about property. And one of the things Locke said about property was, you own yourself, and then whatever you take and create is yours. So if you take the chaos, the resources out in the world, and you create yourself something, it's yours. Locke said, then we institute governments to help protect these rights, these liberties, our property. And so the question on that becomes, just a Trump thing. Question on that becomes, okay, who are they protecting it from? People who want to infringe on those rights. But Locke also recognized that there may be external threats that the government that we've agreed to unite under protects us from those threats, those outside threats. Now, where are you going with this, Mike? Montesquieu believed in free trade, and he saw commerce as the prime mover of economic and intellectual development. So he saw commerce, the trading of property, the trading of goods, as a system of trading development. But he also saw it as morality, knowledge of mores. Both of them saw that in terms of commerce or trading or interactions and relations with others outside the group, there may need to be some type of protection placed by the government for the people against the outside threats. So we go to the Constitution. Constitution was very much, the Commerce Clause, was very much designed that the federal government would handle commerce from outside the borders, handle trade and tariffs and imposts and all that, duties. And it wasn't much contention during the Constitutional Convention. Everybody Madison and Alexander Hamilton and Jefferson, all of them kind of understood. Now, you may say in the Declaration of Independence, didn't they talk about pretended legislation in England trying to control trade and commerce? Their whole thing was the fact that it was not being, they were not being represented, right? They weren't being represented in these decisions being made in terms of commerce and trade. There's a big difference between you're controlling our trade and you're regulating our trade without our word or our consent. So this Article 1, Section 8 of the Constitution, the main list of powers of Congress, begins by conferring on Congress a power to lay and collect taxes, duties, imposts, and excises. Then, after granting a power to borrow money on the credit of the United States, it proceeds to delegate a power to regulate commerce with foreign nations and among the several states and with the Indian tribes. Federal government, remember, it's not a national government, it's a federal government. The states came together, said, well, we should have a body that kind of determines things for us with the rest of the world so we look unified. That was the federal government, Federation of States, United States of America. And one of the powers they gave Congress, which was supposed to be the body that represented the states, represented the people, came together, they figured things out on a global scale. Commerce was that idea, not interstate commerce, international commerce. And this was really kind of an accepted idea. Now, you may say, well, what about bills of attainder? And I've seen that come up. So what is this? This is where laws are pointed at a singular individual or a company, and the laws are meant to punish. And this is an argument that I'm noticing coming up. Now, Huawei, during the Trump administration, came out against the Trump administration because Trump's administration was saying, we don't want Huawei, a Chinese-owned company, telecommunications. We don't want them in federal stuff like the military and all that. Huawei came out and said, this is a bill of attainder. This is a situation that's unconstitutional. The case got dismissed, and here's why. It wasn't a punishment of Huawei. It was a recognition of, no, we're restricting you access to this. Okay? It's got to be a punishment. It's got to be personal in writing this law against an entity or an individual. It's got to be saying, I am now writing a law against Mike Sonneveld that he can never eat food again because he's conservative. Crazy example, but you get my point. And the bills of attainder, I've got it in here. Joseph Story was talking about it. Can I find it? I can't find it. Anyways, under this bills of attainder argument, I've seen people make this argument about this TikTok case. I don't think it fits those three, because what it's saying is, look, you're a foreign adversary, you have ownership in a company that is hurting and harming us, which makes it a national security threat. You're hoovering up our data. We don't think we should give this type of access to a foreign adversary. So therefore, what we are requiring is you divest, you sell off your shares of this company, or else the company will be outright banned from doing business in terms of being offered as a product. That's really what's at stake. Again, they're not calling for the dissolution of the company. They're saying you won't be allowed in U.S. markets if you don't divest. We won't let the Google Plays and the Apple stores and all of that carry your product. I have a hard time being against that, because what we don't remember is the Communist Party is great at social engineering. They're made to social engineer. That's how they do it. That's how they think. They're materialists. They're looking to design utopia through social engineering. So you don't think they're going to try and social engineer us. And sometimes what happens is we build our own personal boundaries in defending our principles of libertarianism, conservative, constitutionalism, whatever. And I personally do not believe the Constitution applies to those who are not citizens. You haven't agreed to our agreement. You haven't brought yourself in under this social contract. And so I don't think it really applies to you. Now, you can have your arguments with me, that's fine. But when we expect others to play by our rules that we've set in our minds, we harm ourselves. Satan does the same thing. Communist Satan, well, you know. They don't play by your rules, and they actually take advantage of you holding yourself to your own rules. Do you think the Chinese cares about intellectual property rights? Do you think they care about trademarks? Do you think they care about individual sovereignty or human dignity? Do you think they actually care about American citizens or society at large? No, you are the enemy to them. They want to destroy you, and they're doing it through social engineering because they know they can't win in a war of bombs and guns. They can draw it out, but nobody wins in that. So it's the long game, which is totally a communist method, is the long game. Plant seeds, put yourself in, invest yourself in a couple of generations, you've got them. And we've looked at what our society has become, and people say, well, we won the Cold War. Well, I don't know. In one sense, in terms of economic, financial, sure, we won. Did the Soviet Union dissolve? Yes, we won that. But man, they left a minefield behind them, socially and psychologically, and I think they won that game. If we look at the fact that a Dylan Mulvaney can go viral on TikTok and become cultural icon, you can't get 12 people at a speaking event. The question is why? Because it's being put in front of our faces. If you look at American TikTok, it's Mulvaney. If you look at Chinese TikTok, engineering, architecture, mathematics, they're trying to develop their society, and they have no problem putting these boundaries on people. For us, they want us in the vice. They want us in the immorality. They want us chasing after dopamine and pleasure. They want us going for the stupid and the dividing us and causing chaos. And did you know that TikTok will get out the vote reminders, and there's a big disparity in how many Democrats get versus Republicans? Why is that? Now, if it were a purely domestic-owned organization, then we have that internal battle with them, sure. But why are we making it so easy for foreign agencies to influence us? And a perfect example of this is, did you know that recently, in major ports across America, the cranes that lift the containers and unload and load the ships, a bunch of these cranes were manufactured in China. And they found boxes on these cranes that they're not quite sure what all these boxes do, but they know they hoover up Wi-Fi data, they hoover up data about what the crane is doing, and they seem to be able to control the crane. Seems to be integral to the system of the crane. Why did we allow that? For the sake of capitalism or libertarianism or laissez-faire, whatever you want to call it, why did we allow that? That's a national security risk. The problem is we're stuck in this idea that war and enemies are only in the battlefield across from us. They care about your infrastructure. They care about your social makeup. They care about your traditions. They care about your mores. You look at Mao and what he attacked. He attacked customs. He attacked traditions. He attacked cultures. And he attacked ideas. The four olds. Wipe those away. Get rid of them. Build anew. They're doing the same thing to us. And so I can't get on the train of, well, they got to, because they're people and we got to just let them do what they do. No, I don't think there's anything wrong with us drawing a line in the sand against foreign adversaries. And let's use an analogy. If Iran owned stake in a water company, and that water company was putting poison into the water, and we might argue we're already being poisoned in our water, but go with me here, and shipping it out to the masses, would we have any problem with saying, well, there seems to be a conflict of interest in Iran producing our water, and that conflict of interest seems to be showing itself in poison in the water? Is there anything wrong with us as America saying, no, Iran, you're not allowed to own our water source, our water supply? And you may argue, well, it's the market, and go Milton Friedman on me and say, well, the market will work it out. Sure. But there's a national security aspect to it, too, of like, well, do we have to go through those lessons, or could we just be wise and stewards of our people and say, we're not going to let foreign actors get one up on us or have this advantage to us? You may disagree with me, and God bless you if you do. I'm not even fully sold on the bill. I see people coming out like it's tough because it's like Nancy Pelosi's for it, Rand Paul's against it. I love Rand Paul. But when I heard his arguments for it, I had a hard time with it because I didn't feel like they were specific enough. They tended towards the general libertarian, we shouldn't control what businesses do and all of that. And to a certain extent, I agree. But there's a mess that gets involved if we're not willing to draw that boundary or that border between what's foreign and what's domestic. And I don't think there's a very strong argument saying this is unconstitutional. The Constitution gives strong powers to the Congress to regulate. Now, if they've passed off that duty or responsibility to others, like unelected bureaucrats, then yeah, sure, we've got problems and we've got to make a complaint. And I get it with the whole president national security thing. I don't think a president should be able to just declare national security. I think that should be a job of Congress. Congress is the one who has to declare war. So therefore, to me, in that purview, national security is in the best interest of Congress. The president handles treaties, that kind of thing. I get it. But I don't like him being able to, well, this is a national security. That's a national emergency. That over there. Outside your scope, bro. So what's the basic of it? What's the and I assure you, and I put this in my blog, the opinions of me are not necessarily the opinions of Self-Evident. Massey and I don't always agree. He and I didn't necessarily agree on Texas shipping out illegal immigrants. I was kind of like, yeah. And I get his point. He's like, just send them back. Why are we putting them back into the U.S.? I get it, and I fully understand, and I'm not even saying he's wrong. But my opinions are mine. Self-Evident is separate. I'm a part of Self-Evident. I'm putting this out as Self-Evident podcast, but it's my own opinion. But I want you to think about, where does that line come into play of national security and rights of companies as individuals? And do foreign adversaries or foreign companies have as many rights as we do? Because the funny thing is, China would never allow a U.S.-controlled company without their direct involvement. And did you know that the Communist Party, in corporations, especially big corporations, they require an office in the building of the company? That's a problem. That means they want control of that company. They want to know what's going on. They want to be able to dictate measurements. They want to dictate the agenda. They want to control how the company flows. They want their hands in it. They want their hands in your life. They want their hands in your society. They want to maneuver and control your society over the long haul, over the decades, not over the weeks. Personally, it's like, we make it easy for them. So I know this was quick and a little bit rushed, although the first one that I did was only 20-something minutes long. And I want to keep these shorter, but I want to hit you with constitutional, legally, all of that. And my position is, I don't think the founders would have much of a problem with it. I don't think they would. Please, in your comments, let me know what you think. I apologize for the sound problems and having to redo it, and my titles probably aren't correct and all that. So I apologize, guys. This has been a morning. But if you want more solid content on Constitution, on godly matters, on society, please come to theselfevidenttruth.com. Come to our social media pages. Let us know what you're thinking. Let us know where you're at. And if you want to disagree, by all means, come disagree with me. Let's have a conversation. So, Missouri, we're coming for you. Massey and Carrie are going there next. If you guys are out in South Carolina at the homeschool convention right now, tell Massey and Carrie say hi to them. Go to the booth. Get yourself some shirt, a book, a curriculum. Do all the things. Thank you. And if you want to be a monthly supporter, please sign up today. Go to theselfevidenttruth.com. Support this content. Support what we do in nationally speaking about these type of topics. Going out and ministering to people. We want to see souls saved, and we want to see this culture transformed with an honor and reverence for the Lord. And you can help sow into that think about becoming a monthly sponsor. If you're already a monthly sponsor, thank you so much for your contributions. You get us where we need to go. So until next time, I love you guys. Y'all have a great day. Enjoy the blank screen while I turn off the camera.